Hello and welcome to the Big Picture. The internal war in the house of Tatas is taking more and more interesting and sinister dimensions. The sacking of the chairman of Tata Sons, Mistry, which is seen as very rare if not unprecedented in big corporates, has assumed ugly dimensions. The email which Mistry released yesterday accuses his predecessor and now his successor, although in an interim capacity, Ratan Tata, in very poor light. Mistry has accused Ratan Tata of incompetence, malfeasance, fraudulent transactions and conflict of interest. The ugly spat which is now being played out in the public has shocked the nation, as the House of Tatas was seen as one of the most respected business groups during its almost 150 years of its existence. So what will be the impact of all this on the group itself, the business environment in India, as well as the corporate governance? We will discuss all this today with Mohan Guruswamy, Senior Economist, Prof.Jagdeep Chhokar, former professor and former dean at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, Prof.Arun Kumar, retired professor at the JNU and a senior economist, and Subhomoy Bhattacharya, consulting editor of the Business Standard. Welcome to all of you. Professor Chhokar, I would like to come to you first. How do you see this entire thing which has unfolded in the last couple of days? Do you see this boardroom coup which has happened as almost unprecedented as far as corporate history of India is concerned?
You see, this is certainly unprecedented about corporate history in India. But what is more disturbing is that it should happen to the Tatas.
Right.
There are all kinds of corporates in India. A lot of them are not worth emulating. But the House of Tatas was considered to be one of the best, most stable and mature industrial and business groups in the country. They have had chairmen lasting 53 years, 21 years and so on and so forth. And a person who was identified after a search which went on for more than 1 year.
Yeah.
And who in a way was in-house, not entirely, but in a way. Now, for this person to be removed in this fashion is extremely disturbing. There is nothing wrong in removing a chairman, but the way it is done, the way it has been done in this case, shows the entire corporate governance process in an extremely poor light. And when one reads the email that Mistry has put out, or which has been put out on his behalf, it shows that not that everything was not well, but that things have been rather sordid, and that even a very respectable industrial house like the Tatas has not been functioning in a very professional, transparent, above board manner. In addition to all this, I also would like to mention that today I came across a letter purportedly written by Ratan Tata to the Prime Minister,
right,
informing him that the chairman, Mistry, has been removed and a new chairman will be in place within four months. Now, I find it very strange to see that the interim chairman of a large industrial house should find it necessary or expedient to formally inform the Prime Minister of what is going on in this house.
Right.
Whereas on the one hand we say that business should be independent and free and the government should not interfere. That letter written by Ratan Tata, if it is genuine, then it raises very serious concerns.
Absolutely.
Whether industries and business houses want to work independently or do they want to be hand in glove with the government.
Absolutely.
So the whole thing is a very, very disturbing episode in the corporate life of the country. And I don't think it is good for what is called doing business in India.
Okay. Mohan, you know, one interesting thing what Professor Chhokar was talking about, it is not that, you know, you can't remove chairmen of boards and, you know, this has happened in the past, but the way it has been done. Is that what you also have a problem with, or you think that, you know, the way it was done also is a problem?
No, I think I have a problem with why it was done.
Okay.
Rather than the way it was done. I mean, you remove a chairman, this is how you do it. You know, you pull off a boardroom coup. It happens all over the world. You know, there's no exceptional reason why Tatas should function any other way. After all, they are the same kind of human beings.
But it has never happened in the House of Tatas.
In the House of Tatas may not have happened, but happens all over the world with frequency. Big companies, bigger companies change chairman and CEOs quite often. But what has happened here?
In this way, in a coup of sorts?
Always a coup.
Always a coup. Okay.
You know, the chairman, the chief executive seldom knows that the axe is being lowered on him till the board meeting happens, and you know, like in Ford Motors and General Motors, you know, chairman have asked to go suddenly. But what's happened here is that this group of companies, the 57 companies, listed companies, only 2 make good profits, 5 make some kind of profits, 20 are perennial loss makers, 20 are laggards who just languish around. So you've got basically 2 companies, Tata Consultancy Services, which is an independent company, and you have JLR, which is a part of Tata Motors, which makes money. So only a division of...
And which was acquired recently.
Which was acquired recently. So, you know, JLR is doing well because the China market is doing well. China is slowing down. So, you know, that's also an iffy thing now. Now, you've got a new chairman, a professional, a younger man who's got experience in the family, who says he wants to set right these things because, you know, companies are hemorrhaging. And, you know, I saw these figures today of an 18 to 20 billion rundown. And companies like, you know, Tata Telecom have already lost 50,000 crores. So, you know, he's been trying to attend to this and saying that some of them should be sold, some of them should be divested, whatever, you know. You are not in business for sentimental reasons. If Nano is losing money for 8 years consecutively, then you've got to take a hard business. So, you know, he's been looking at these things. Some of the new businesses, Tata, everybody is exiting airlines. You know, Tata gets into not one airline, but 2 airlines, you know. So there are questionable decisions clearly which need to be explained. And, you know, and it's not a company which is owned by one family. It's a business group where the trust, the Tata Sons, which is 70% trust, Tata Trust, is only a minor shareholder. There are companies like Tata Steel where the public shareholding, the financial institutions are as big as Tata Sons. So, you know, there are questions. You can't run groups cavalierly any way you want, you know. And you pull off a boardroom coup, you start replacing directors in Tata Sons surreptitiously last year. You have the right to do it. You change the articles, amend the articles of association. And an interesting thing, what I see is that only 2 professionals, in a sense, one, Ishad Hussain, who's an in-house man, and Ms. Kambata,
yes,
who's a professional director,
in America,
a professional, they abstained from the voting. The rest were all bought in by Ratan Tata, who voted for ousting the chairman. Now, this doesn't augur well.
This not only doesn't augur well, Prof.Arun Kumar, but it is not expected in Tata, as Professor Chhokar was pointing out.
Right.
And, you know, Mohan was talking about in the way it was done, why it was done seems to be more important.
Right, right. You know, the point is that, you know, as Mohan was saying, this is the way chairpersons are changed, okay, typically. But the point is, what does it show in the wider sense? I think Jagdeep and Mohan have already talked about it. What it shows is that this house, which is supposed to be one of the best managed, if this can happen here, what does it show for everybody else?
Yes.
You know? And there are several points that I'd like to make. One is there's a lack of professionalism. You know, even when you chose Ratan Tata, at that point, it is a person from within the house. When you chose Cyrus Mistry, again, it was person from within the house itself. So there is a certain lack of professionalism. It's not that other professionals are not available to manage it. So there was a certain pressure of the owners group in the selection process. Now, that is the beginning of where the interference really takes place, because the boards are also managed. We saw, you know, in an extreme case, the Satyam case,
yes,
where the board of directors were very distinguished, former cabinet secretary and so on, and yet they went along with whatever Mr. Raju did in Satyam. So similarly here, as Mohan is pointing out, the board of directors actually sided with Ratan Tata. You know, they didn't take an independent decision
view
on the issue. You know, what has been pointed out as the legacy issues that came in from earlier, which had caused big losses to the companies, those which Cyrus Mistry were trying to sort out, those were not taken into account. So the nature of boards is very important. Nature of bad decisions, this legacy issues, that is very important. How do you deal with it? You don't have to have sentimental things that if you have suggested the Nano or if you suggested 2 airlines, you know, then you have to continue with them no matter what. You know, that shows a lack of professionalism. Then the ownership of the companies is hidden behind various financial architecture. So it's not very clear very
this was
often.
not expected of a house of Tata.
But
we know about other corporate
True,
houses
but,
which
but if it's the case in the Tatas, you can imagine what it is in other
Exactly.
cases. So like for instance, when Satyam fell, it was found they had 600 companies. You know, it's suggested that the top Indian business house has more than 2,000 companies behind it. So what's suggested is that the financial architecture of the companies is not very transparent, and that's how control is managed. And here, you go back to Hazari Commission in the mid-60s, which pointed out to the umbrella pattern of holding of companies, so that you don't really know who's owning what, and therefore who can pull the strings where. Then, other shareholders lose out because of these decisions. In the Tata companies, there are a large number of other shareholders, including public sector, LIC, and so on and so forth. And if bad decisions are coming, and as Mohan was pointing out, very few of them are really making profits. Most of them are not making profits, and therefore the public loses out, the shareholders lose out. So these are some of the lessons that come out of this, which need to be looked at in terms of improving corporate governance, which is the point you started with.
Yes, Subhomoy, corporate governance. What does it speak about the corporate governance, corporate regulations in this country? When you look at this, what has happened?
Well, what the points have all been made are all very valid points, and the point, but from the Tata's point of view, is that Tata Sons is not a publicly listed enterprise.
Right.
So it's essentially a company from which Cyrus Mistry has been removed as a chairman. So there is an issue there. Once Cyrus Mistry's directorship or chairmanship of other Tata companies which are listed on the bourses, once those come up, it will be interesting to see, as Prof.Arun Kumar pointed out, there are public financial institutions which hold shares in them. There has been a market loss. There's been a market capitalization loss. In the last 3 days, there's been a loss of 44,000 crore. What do they say about that? What do the minority shareholders say about the fact that did these changes affect the performance of those companies? Did those companies therefore lose because of this pact, or is it business as usual? That's when the major issues of corporate governance comes in, because corporate governance obviously comes in the question of the larger...
Subhomoy, what are you trying to say? That now that he has been removed as chairman of the Tata Sons,
I'm just saying that
he's chairman of other companies also.
Girish, what I'm saying is...
Do they have to, do all of them have to remove him individually?
Yes. They all have to remove them individually, because it cannot be directly, because it's not given that just because he's not the chairman of the Tata Sons, therefore he ceases to be chairman of a particular company.
That's very interesting.
So all those companies' AGMs, when they come up, these issues will be thrashed through individually. In fact, it's going to be fairly messy, because there are 50, out of the 57 companies, almost 5 or so are listed. So all those companies, when they approach the stock exchanges, when they hold their AGM, this drama would be played out.
Every time a new company's AGM is held, this drama will be played out.
Sort of, unless he decides to resign.
From all of them himself.
So, there is a lot to, so we have just not even touched the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely, that's very interesting. Yes, Mohan?
I think if you look at some of the big companies which I did today, Tata Steel has 30% Tata Sons, Tata Motors has 30% Tata Sons. So, Cyrus Mistry will not be the Tata Sons candidate for chairmanship the next time around, But he's there as chairman now, till the AGM goes on. So, and he doesn't have a role now in Tata Sons because it's a private company, and he's only 20% shareholding in that company. So
18% actually.
18%.
But
so,
yesterday he attended the board meeting of one of the companies.
BGVS.
And he presided.
Yes. So now what, supposing if they take an investment decision, now companies are continuously taking investment decisions, even disinvestment is an investment decision, what happens? Do they hold valid? That's something
very
that
interesting.
that Professor should be able to second.
Professor Chhokar, can you? This is a very interesting, issue which has come up. How do you look at this?
You see, what happens to his chairmanship or membership on the board of directors of the 53 plus other companies of the Tata Sons or the Tata Group is actually a legal issue, but it also amounts to something like counting the trees and forgetting the forest. The forest is that he is out of the system as far as the so-called dominant coalition which controls the system is concerned. Now there may be a messy legal battle, the lawyers may make a lot of money and it may go on forever and ever, but the game is out in the open. In terms of corporate governance in this country being messy, let me take it to a larger canvas. Not only corporate governance, my friend, all governance in this country is messy. Now, corporate governance does not fall from the sky. Corporate governance is not controlled or invented or done only by the corporates. Corporate governance happens under an ecosystem of governance in the country. When we have a governance in the country, which I think Mohan Guruswamy himself wrote about what is happening in UP, two patriarchs of governance in this country play their hands at the same time on the same day, how can you expect corporate governance to be very different? We cannot, I mean, we can be discussing corporate governance in isolation to general governance, but I think we are shutting our eyes to the reality around in the country.
Okay. No, but you know, that's okay, sir. But what happens to, does he have to go individually? Do they have to call AGMs individually of each of these companies,
yes.
of which he is chairman?
He has to go individually. But whether it is a messy legal battle or not, Ratan Tata and his cohorts will make sure that he does get out of each of these companies.
What about,
sooner or later that will happen.
What about the public companies which have huge shares in some of these companies? So what is the, you know, that letter which you are speaking about? Yes, please continue.
That is precisely the point. The letter that was written or ostensibly written to the Prime Minister is to make sure that the financial institutions which hold major shares in these companies will follow the bidding of the powers that be.
Okay, that's very interesting. How do you react?
No, you see, each company theoretically will have to take a decision on merit. Okay, and they may not. They all go as a herd, because you know we generally like to believe that because he has the name Tata, he is the descendant of the founder and therefore has some rights, which is also not true, because he is not a lineal descendant of the founder. He is not even a blood relative. But what will happen here is that, as they anticipate, there would be a fight at every stage. You know, Cyrus Mistry is not likely to go away peacefully, because, and he's flagged important issues.
Very important issues.
And you know, this putting of House of Tatas, the management of Tatas on a high pedestal is all a lot of media managed, you know, PR managed thing. We know what kind of pedestal they occupied. The radio tapes said everything, you know, all the other actions said everything. So, you know, they handle these things better and with a more, you know, more finesse and maybe even a sharper knife. But the fight has to take place. Each company has to decide on its own. Now, LIC might be the principal shareholder in Tata Steel, so he might take an independent position, and Tata Motors.
How independent positions can these people take now?
You know, I think what Jagdeep has raised is a very important issue. I mean, our businesses have been characterized very largely by crony capitalism.
Yes.
It's not as if this has happened now. This is a long-standing thing where, you know, right from the 50s onward, who had links with which politicians was very important to get licenses, etc., etc. Now, post 1991, it was thought that this will actually decline.
The license Raj will end.
Was supposed to end, but new ways of building linkages have come up, you know. And what has happened in this particular case is, as he's saying, that the letter to the Prime Minister so as to ensure that the public institutions which have holdings in these companies, they side with Ratan Tata rather than with Cyrus Mistry. And, you know, there's a precedence for this. If you remember, Swaraj Paul tried to take over the escorts and the other company, this Nanda's company,
right,
okay, 1983, okay. And that time, again, it was said that Mrs. Gandhi was siding with one and Rajiv Gandhi was siding with the other, and finally they weren't able to take over because the public institutions then voted against Swaraj Paul taking over. So that is already a precedence in the Indian context where public institutions look for signals from the government. And bank chairpersons are appointed by the government through the banking division, so that there's already sort of a link between the chairpersons of the banks and the political masters. So where they will vote, who they'll side with, all that is decided. So in other words, what is being shown is that the post 1991, the liberalization, when where it was hoped that the businesses and the politicians, that connection would weaken. That has not weakened. That's still very strong, and that still
Very
matters
strong.
for corporate governance.
And this letter which Ratan Tata wrote to the Prime Minister, which was thought to be very innocent initially when it was released, is not so innocent.
No, let's put it this way. Any group, any major industrial group, when it is changing its guard, would be giving out. I mean, I have found no finance secretary ever to say that they have not received information from the groups about change at the top level. It's some people do it through phone by sending letter. Some people don't even do that. They send their men across in Delhi to inform the government.
Yeah.
But I would be surprised. I mean, I'll take a different point of view here to say that I see no reason why political executive would not know or would be not aware of what is happening in the business. The fact that businessmen are interacting with political parties, with the government of the day, is what, like any other groups, they would be. I mean, would we be saying that the lobby groups, for instance, say a good Samaritan organization should not be interacting with that?
No, but,
so, but the point out here is...
I want to remind ourselves, all of us, about what happened 10 years back when the Ambani brothers split and all that mess happened. The government of the day said that we are not going to, it's not our.
We haven't found any evidence so far that the government of the day has said that we are interfering. So we have to give the credit due. When it happens, or if there are evidences, then we'll obviously come around for that discussion. So I don't think that leading it on to say this is crony capitalism is not the point. What you've raised the issue of corporate governance and whether this decision of shifting him out, I agree with Mohan that any such decision always happens radically. So it suddenly comes along. If you give time, then obviously the chief executive is a powerful position. He will create defenses and he will block it. So it's incumbent on the person who's asking the person to push out to do it suddenly. It is how it is happens. That's how boardroom battles happen.
Whether that's justified or not is a separate.
No, it's not justified, but it is what it happens.
It happens.
It happens that
But
way.
whether it's justified or not, yes,
The
Mohan.
question here is, if you had good governance norms, result-based norms, I think Ratan Tata would have gone a long time ago. You are allowed to continue in a company, hemorrhage it, bleed it, run it whimsically any way you want, for sentiment, for friends, whatever. And then you bring it to this pass. Then somebody wants to change it, declares he wants to change it, then you immediately throw him out, because unraveling that legacy would mean that, exposing the past. And they want to keep that.
No, but one second. One very important issue has been raised by people who they are saying that this man, Cyrus Mistry, was incompetent. There are reports saying that in the last 1 year, Ratan Tata has been writing letters to him saying that, showing concerns about certain decisions taken or things like that. So they are trying to justify, though it has not come out in any official way, that he was on trial.
I think Ratan Tata will have to answer as to when this steel business is cyclical business. He went and bought steel businesses abroad, which are much bigger than Tata Steel. He invested in the transition of Tatas from being a company invested mostly in India to a company mostly invested abroad was done in his period. With whose consultation did you do it? How did you buy British Steel? What are the kind of assurances did you give there? And you get into telecom business when everybody is getting out of it with Tata Docomo, and you've got 50,000 crores down the tubes there. So these are questions you have to, in a normal, democratic, corporate atmosphere, these are questions which have to be answered. But you get away in India because of crony capitalism, all kinds of things.
Their credit at the time when they did it, they say that these are the reasons, this is the thing. Whether we were able to ask more difficult questions or not is an issue of corporate governance, which should certainly be asked. On the issue of whether Cyrus was competent or not, there's this, I'll tell you what happened when we were tracking Tatas just after the split. Cyrus Mistry set up a board called the GEC, General Executive Council.
Right.
The General Executive Council was basically...
Which has been dismantled now.
Which has been dismantled. It brought in his people whom he thought were his people with competence. They were all very competent people. But it sort of bypassed the board, which is what the board thinks. And as a result, the decisions of which Cyrus took, apparently, to the board, it seemed that they didn't have the backstop of the board.
They were overlooked.
They were overlooked. Now, whether that is a fair comment or not is an issue. But what it does seem is what Mohan has again raised a very fundamental point is the issue of communication. Did Ratan Tata, for instance, say adequately that we have a problem here?
Yes.
Or did Cyrus Mistry say before he issued this letter this time, did he say earlier that look, there was a problem coming along?
Absolutely.
For 4 years he didn't give an interview.
Professor Chhokar, you know, how much damage has this caused to the business environment in this country and also the corporate business in this country in future?
You see, whatever claims were being made that the business environment in the country has improved and the ease of doing business, India's position has improved from 205 to 995 or whatever it was. I am using wrong numbers deliberately. It goes on to prove without any doubt that there is nothing like professional corporate governance in the country. It is all personality driven and coterie driven, and it functions under the overall umbrella of the political governance in the country, which is business as usual. That has been in India for many, many years. Not that it is necessarily bad, but we can't go around claiming that the business climate has improved and all the professional big companies from the world will be making a beeline to come here. That myth stands shattered, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, corporate governance, as I said earlier, happens in an overall ecosystem. When that ecosystem is not healthy, in my opinion, then nor will the corporate governance be healthy. As far as the question of the General Executive Council and the Board of Directors is concerned, what prevented the Board of Directors from telling the chairman that we do not like the way this General Executive Council is functioning? I mean, all
we
these
don't know
things
whether
have
it has
to
been
be
said. We don't know still whether it has been said or
of
not.
The Board of Directors.
We'll have to wait for more information. Yes.
No.
I think the
Yes, Professor.
The fact is, even if it was said, it had not been given as a reason by anybody so far. We are all speculating, of course.
Yeah, okay. Yes, Professor.
But
Very
the
quickly.
fact is that the communication between the chairman, that the communication between the chairman and the Board of Directors was not good is obvious.
Okay.
So
Yes,
the
very
point
quickly.
that's coming through is that the political decisions matter in all this. So when you say crony capitalism, it's not that they're holding their hand directly, but in a wider sense, as Jagdeep is saying, the climate is very much there. Secondly, Tata Sons is a very diverse company. Most successful companies are very narrowly focused today. Whether you have Apple, whether you have various other companies. This company required a different architecture altogether for management, and that has not been achieved. So the decisions for investment have not been based on market profitability, but based on various kinds of personalized decision making. That is something that the corporate sector needs to take care of. And that's only successful because of your overall climate.
Okay, sir. I think on that note, we'll end. It's not a very happy day for this country as well as the corporates in this country. I think they'll all have to sit and rethink about what they have been doing, and maybe the government also needs to do a rethink about what kind of corporate governance prevails in this country. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the Big Picture same time tomorrow.